for the greater good.
Welcome back to Lizard of Doom. I am Max. Now, I didn't quite have time to finish October in the way I would like, so I've put that on hold and we'll circle back. But I did have time this week to kitbash something important for the Tau army that I've been doing with the Gundams and the like. So far in that army, I've mentioned there is a human Guevesa army, but I ain't made no humans yet, so let's fix that. So before we get into it, subscribe please. I'm nearing 9,000 and heading towards 10,000 hopefully by the end of this year, and click on my like button. Ooh, yes please. And consider sharing with a friend. Thank you. The obvious place to start is a box of Tau Fire Warriors. These legs though are gonna have to go, and these heads, yep, they definitely are not human. We'll be getting rid of those. I'm going to be kitbashing them with a box of Palanite Enforcers. These bodies are perfect for this in my opinion. I'll discuss a little bit more why later. And the helmets look a bit like the Gundam I've used as a Riptide, so that might come in handy later. The basis of this model will be the Palanite Enforcer's body and legs, and I can put them together without worrying on these bases from the Fire Warriors, as Necromunda models have very textured cool bases, but not quite right for what I'm going to be doing with these in the future. The Necromunda kits are a fantastic resource for kitbashing humans. There are so many different types of humans that you don't normally see in the main 40k game, and they are perfect for all different bits and bobs like this. I had a look at the Nomad Ash Waste ones as well because I think they'd be quite good human Kroot. If you can think of any other good ones for Tau, let me know in the comments and I'll have a little look at them. I did have a good browse through all of them and had a look at a lot of different ranges and decided that the Palanites would be a good fit for my Tau conversions because these are not too Imperial Guard looking, not too heavily recognisable. These guys are very kind of bulky compared to Tau. That may be a problem in the near future. Their chests are a little bit broader. They're almost as thick as your mum, but this is a good start. Now, the reason I'm not using Imperial Guard, which other people have used in kit bashes for this kind of thing, pictures here from Google Images, the reason I'm not using them is because they are still very obviously Imperial Guard. Whereas the Necromunda kits are human, but they're not as distinctive and iconic as those kits. I think it's a nice way to do it without it just looking like an army painted like a different army, if you get what I mean. The next decision I had to make were arms. These are the arms from the Palanite box themselves, but they are not too much thicker than the Tau arms. The Tau arms are about the same length, so as much as I could get away with it, I was just going to use Tau arms on these guys. It would make it a little bit easier. I used as many singular Tau arms as I could, and by that I mean Tau arms that aren't both holding on to the same weapon, because that is a little bit trickier with these thicker chests, as I mentioned before. There are, however, not many in the pack. I managed to get away with 4 guys with separated arms. These Palanite shoulder pads on the miniatures do a world of hiding. They are a fantastic feature on this miniature that allows you to just tuck the arms up underneath and you can't really see the joins that well. Although this will teach me to dry fit everything first. This arm holding the gun up like this I thought could just pop under there, but nope. That shoulder pad I was just preaching about gets completely in the way, so I had to do something about that. A bit of clipping down to make the top a bit fit and a bit of scalpeling to make the gun fit better around the chest, and it was on. Really simple, really quick, not too much work gone into this, and then we have got our first Tau armed human being in this force. I think this is going to work well. You can't really tell that they're Tau armed apart from the finger count, so that is something we will face later. Off camera I then did change that angle so the gun isn't so, it's now properly up like that. Now I had the challenge of trying to make them with arms connecting holding the gun because I had run out of singular arms. For this we will need 1 thick barrel chested man, 1 Tau arm with the gun already in hand, 1 human arm with no hand on it from the Palanite kit, and then 1 Tau arm with the hand we are after. This was the best method I found after making 6 of them. You are seeing the 6th. I perfected this method before I filmed it, which I think was a good idea. Here we go, here's Thick Boy, and this arm fits nicely up under there, and you can see that there's various options. We can move it up and down, and there's a little bit of wiggle room so we can align that with the other arm. This little bit of wiggle helps us make them meet in the middle. The other arm I was talking about, being the human arm, on this side, you can see there's a bit of pivot in that too. That one goes up and down, so that is very helpful in aligning them as well. These models were quite forgiving to kitbash together. There was a lot of room to do what I wanted. The only issue was the Tau arms with the guns sometimes tucked in a little bit too close to the chest, and I had to trim the back off the guns a little bit. I glued those all in place so I could work on the hand afterwards. The hand would be quite simple. Just take a 2 blunt scalpel, like I did here, and smash it through the miniature until it gives. There we go, that's definitely the pro way to do that. Once we had that hand attached, it was just a matter of gluing it to the wrist, trimming it so it fitted a little bit, and here we go. 1 human arm, 1 Tau arm. If I didn't tell you, I don't think it would be that noticeable. And we now have a human fire warrior holding his rifle. Now, shoulder pads for the Tau fire warriors are these big chunky pieces, but luckily they perfectly fit over the Palanite shoulder piece as well. These kits are, I believe, the best 2 I could have picked to make human Tau. I mean, obviously I was going to need a fire warrior kit, but this human kit could not have been better for this Tau kitbashing adventure. I was incredibly happy with the body and weapon combo I had created so far. This was going to look great. So now I had to make a decision about the heads, and this is something I posted in my Patreon. If you are interested in joining the future chats in there, the early releases and the competitions to get your name in videos, then have a look at that in the link below. The choice of heads I had to make were between the Palanite ones, which look more like the Gundam I used to make a Riptide, or the more traditional Tau helmets that came in the Fire Warriors kit. So as I said, I posted that on my Patreon and then let them decide. But while they were doing that, I did something else. I knew I wanted the Sergeant to have a normal human head, the one that came in the Palanite kit. This would make it more obvious that they were human Tau, because maybe you wouldn't notice that the feet were different. Maybe you wouldn't notice that they were a little thicker, but this is undisputably now a human. He has a nose. With the head glued onto this miniature, the only thing left to do was put the shoulder pad on. As I said, they perfectly fit over these shoulder pads, nice and easy. When this was on, I would have my first finished human Tau. The reason I started this army is because I wanted to paint a Gundam. It was something that tickled my fancy, and it has evolved into this whole army of Guevesa, which is what the Tau call their human troops. Literally, it translates as human helper. They are kind of lower class in the Tau system, as you can get from the name human helper. And these guys, if you followed the Lizard lore in my previous Tau Gundam videos, they are a liberated planet. That's quite often how humans join the Tau. This planet they're on is called Emika, and it has been forgotten by the Empire in an arm of the galaxy that has been long abandoned by the Imperium of Man. Their new friends have saved them, supplied them with this new kit, and now they're off to war for the greater good, rather than for mankind. Now with the Patreon vote over for what they wanted, they immediately threw a curveball. So the first person to vote between the Palanite heads or the Tau helmets voted for a mix. And then everyone followed suit. So thank you very much, Patreons, for making it more complicated than it had to be. But I'm going to respect the want for a mix, but I am not going to mix with the Palanites. When I put them side by side, it just looked like 2 different squads. The helmets really make this. So what I'm going to do is a mix of the Tau helmets to really sell this as a Tau squad and not, like a human army squad, and human heads to sell them as humans. So here I have 2 bodies ready for their 2 different heads. The first one is going to be the standard Tau helmet with the little earpiece on it, and the second is going to be this human head that I just fired at him. They both have the same problem connecting them. Both the Tau head and the human head have rounded nubs on the bottom, and the bodies have a flat bit where the neck ends. So a little bit of clipping for the bigger nub on the Tau helmet, and then some scraping with the scalpel to make sure I had a nice flat area to glue. And when it came to the human head, it didn't have as much of a neck, so I just had to scrape it with a scalpel. I couldn't take much off with the clippers like I'd done with the Tau head. You can change the angles that these attach to the body by changing the angles that you scrape and clip underneath, and by doing this you can make them look any way you want them to, whether that be up, down, sideways, cock their head, any way you want, you can make your troops look like that. After I'd got them nice and flat, it was time to glue them to their bodies. The human heads don't have as much neck as the Tau helmets do, so it leads to them being a little bit kind of in the shoulder pads, but the kind of hunched over pose of that model compared to the upright pose of the Tau model next to it didn't help. So that's why that head looks a little bit low in the shoulders compared to the other one. When they're all together at the end in the reveal shots, I don't think it's that noticeable. I had one issue left to solve. Can you see what it is? 1, 2, 3. Yes. Tau have 3 fingers as a species, but these humans need more than that. If you weren't aware, humans do not have 3 fingers, and I need to make a couple of extra because humans do indeed have 1, 2, 3, 4 fingers. I needed to make a 4th finger for all of these miniatures. Tiny bit of green stuff here, pulled off the block I just mixed into a little sausage and rolled between my fingers. I repeated this process several times, pulling it smaller and smaller and smaller with less green stuff in every bit, and rolling it into a sausage shape and seeing how that felt. It was going to be the tiniest thing that I have ever green stuffed, a little pinky finger on a Tau's hand, but it was a very important step in making them look human. When I had the bit that I thought was the size I needed, I rolled it between the tips of my fingers to make a tiny little pinky sausage, and then grabbed him and put it under his hand. I did make different fingers dependent on the model. Each hand either gained a pinky or an index finger, depending on how they were pointing or holding their weapon. Whichever one looked right at the time is whichever one they got. I roughly squidged it into place on their hands, and then kind of firmed it up with the back end of a pair of tweezers that were on my desk. You don't need expensive tools for little bits of green stuffing like this. If you're sculpting something more in depth, like fur or cloth, I would recommend silicone tools, but the back end of tweezers will do when you're doing little repair jobs like this. It was going quite well, but then I realised it was making his hand look a little bit odd. This extra finger on this hand was making the finger area too wide for the palm of the hand. I needed to fix this with a little bit more green stuff. I was happy with the finger itself, but the hand needed work. Luckily, this is real time. You've seen me make this finger in real time, so it's not going to be too much of a job to do it to every single one. It took me about 2 minutes to make a finger, so times that by 2 for each person, and by 10, 40. So it took me roughly 40 minutes to an hour to make all these fingers. That's not bad. To fix the hand problem, I made a little ball and then made it littler again because it's so small, this stuff I'm green stuffing here. And then when I had something the right size, I pushed it onto the bottom of his hand and squished it into rough shape. Once this was done, I was much happier with how the hand was looking. It was looking more like a human hand and not like a cartoon hand, like a Mickey Mouse hand where the fingers stick off the side. Here he is now, 2 pinky fingers added from the earlier model. And yeah, human being, human feet, human hands, human body. Now just to do it on everyone else. I have never fingered this many men before, but as far as green stuffing goes, it was a relatively easy job, so let's have a look how the finished thing looks with a little bit of lizard lore. Featuring the name of one of my Patreons who is the quickest to the post when I said, who wants to be my Shasui?
What's a Shasui?
A Shasui?
Yeah.
It's the leader of the squad.
Oh.
My name used to be Sergeant Taggart, now it's Shasui Taggart. I used to be the sergeant of the law enforcement agency on Amika. There's not much need for that now. There's no crime since the blue guys took over. Now I lead the strike team. It's mostly boys I brought with me from the law enforcement agency, but some specially selected by the Tau themselves. They've supplied us with all this new gear, and I've got to say it's much better quality than anything else we've ever had. All the stuff left behind by the Imperium is junk in comparison. There's not enough to go around, but I thought I should lead by example and give the boys the helmets and not have one myself. Our job is to secure the objective on the battlefield where the boys in big suits fight on. We know our role. and we perform it well. So look out, Galaxy, because we're about to bring you the greater good from Amikan's finest. We're not alone anymore, and we're stronger than ever. And we're not afraid of what's out there, are we, boys? Amikan first loyalists! Hoorah! This will be painted up on the channel pretty soon. I'm going to flip-flop back and forth between my Tau, my Orcs and my Chaos Knights till all of them are done, with other little bits interspersed between all of those videos. If you like the content, like I said earlier, check out the Patreon. The link is going to be up here, shablam, and it is down below as well. Thank you to my Patreons, their names were over those reveal shots then. I also have a Discord which is free to join, you don't need to be a Patreon for that, so that's down there as well. If you didn't tickle my like button and made it this far, maybe consider doing that. Also, please leave a comment that just says algorithm if you've got nothing else to say. That would really help this video out. Thank you. Remember, it is not a pile of shame, it is a pile of future fun. See you next time, kids.
Shushwi.
Stop saying shush suis. I think it sounds French, doesn't it?
Shushwi.
Je suis. You're putting H's where there's no H's.